Welcome to the Side Action Podcast, the sports gambling show that covers everything in the world of sports betting from A through Z. We'll cover the four major sports, as well as anything and everything in between worth some action, and will increase the size of your bankroll. And here we go.
All right, welcome to the Side Action, episode 15 of season 7. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You could follow me at Wegspool on Instagram and on X. And we have a special guest star. Who are you, sir?
Oh, good question, Jimmy Wags. Who am I today? I am John Ulrich. And you can find me at John R. Ulrich on X or Instagram, John R. Ulrich 43.
So this is a unique situation. Our usual co-host Coop, aka Dalton Coop, he is, I don't know what to tell you. He's out with his girlfriend. That's basically what's it. He's doing Thanksgiving activities, going to movies, eating leftovers. So thank you for stepping in, sir.
I got to say, Dalton, he's got his priorities right, my friend.
I'm not sure about that. That's the jury's out on that one, but I hear you. So what have you been up to? You're in Hawaii, obviously visiting me, so thank you.
Oh, yeah. So I was here for the Maui Classic. Here in gorgeous Maui, of all places, and it was awesome. It was great. You have 8 teams, and this field was loaded. I know this is more football, but we're going to do a little college basketball.
Yeah.
Where you had 4 top 10 teams, and then you also had the likes of Memphis, Colorado, and Michigan State, all with winning records. So strong field, and it was just an awesome time. It's a gym that's like your high school gym that fits 2,000 rabid fans, and you're just right on top of the action, and it doesn't get much better than that.
And so I got to go over there on Wednesday. Obviously, Christina Ridgway was here last weekend. It was great to hang out with her and show her Honolulu. Then I flew over to Maui to visit you guys, so thanks for the invite. And then we got to see Dayton against UConn on Wednesday night. It was a 7th-place game, but it still was a good game. And somebody was trending on X after the game because somebody started a very impressive chant during the game. What was that chant, John?
Oh, there was nothing better than watching a grown man cry, and that was our friend Danny Hurley.
That's right.
He, with all his histrionics and bad mouthing to refs, he had to be called out.
He did.
So anytime that he was acting a little bit out of line, we made sure that we were chanting Hurley's angry, and
Hurley's angry. Hurley's angry. Yeah, that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, and he got angry a lot because the Dayton Flyers had just waxed the defending champion UConn Huskies, so that was good to watch.
Yeah, they sent him packing. They're 0-3 in the Maui Invitational. Dayton looked good. They did lose the other games. They blew leads, but they played really well in that game. It was fun to see them, and the Dayton faithful were very fired up, and it was fun.
It was a good time. Definitely a good way to spend a little time in Maui. So you get your beach time, you get your pool time, and then in the evening you get your basketball. That's living life right.
It's living good. And so we flew back today. We're in Honolulu in my place, friendly confines here, and we did go to Waikiki. We went to Mai Tais, which I love to go, and then we went to the deck. We saw the volleyball guys, and thanks for stepping in.
Yeah. Always been a dream of mine to be on the Side Action Podcast, and finally, after 7 seasons, you invited me. So
yeah, it took a few episodes.
I'm going to have to step up. I feel like I'm the hot offense coordinator that just needs to step up and be a great head coach.
Well, that may link us to the next part of the podcast. Usually we have a segment we call, who we taking to the shed, which is people that maybe didn't perform so good this week. Maybe you need a little timeout or some time to regroup. Would you be comfortable sending somebody to the shed this week, Johnny? You?
Oh, the easy answer, of course, would be Matt Eberflus.
That's right.
But you didn't pay for the easy answer.
Well, it's fine. It could be he could be mentioned. He's not on my list.
No. But probably the more honest answer, is George McCaskey.
Ooh, yeah. That's big.
It is big. Since I don't have the exact date on me, so anyone can fact check me, but our guy Mark Patash with the Sun Times said since George McCaskey took over in 2011, The Bears have just been miserable. I think they've hired 5 GMs, which included Jerry Angelo and
Yeah.
5 or 6 head coaches, and they've been in the playoffs once or twice, and it has just been miserable. It's just been miserable, and I feel like they're killing off the fan base because
They are.
I remember like when the Bears won, I was at the highest of highs,
Mhm.
and then when they lost, which was very back in the '80s, the lowest of lows. But now it's when the Bears win, I'm excited. When they lose, it's over.
Well, we should say you're a ticket holder, a season ticket holder too, so you can speak from the heart. You're there at a lot of those games.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to see George McCaskey just slowly tear down the franchise that, unfortunately, he married into.
He did.
Yeah. So it's not like he's the forefather of the NFL. He's just lucky by marriage rights by his mother. So good on her. But she's better. She raised a good son, but not a good NFL owner.
Listen, McCaskey, get in the shed, figure it out. You got time to figure out a new coach because you've got several games to figure it out. We know that Thomas Brown becomes the interim, but we'll see if there's a real good search here.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
As Bears fans. But if you're NFC North, you've been enjoying the last 30 years of Bears ineptitude.
That's right. Anybody else in the shed, John? You got anybody else you want to put in there?
We talked a little bit about Dan Hurley, and it's
Yeah.
always fun watching him break down. The only thing is that, and I know that there's a lot of big money in college basketball, but
There is.
you do work for an education institution, and you do have to be a role model for young kids.
You do.
And the way that he was acting over the weekend or during the week, he's got room for improvement. So, yeah, you can be emotional and you can definitely care a lot, but you always got to treat others with respect. And, there's a few times that he got a little out of line. So,
He's mad when he took off his glasses and he got all pissed off. So, Danny Hurley, get in the shed, figure it out. Maybe you and George can commiserate in the shed and figure out a better way to go forward. How about that?
Yeah, come back next week as better men.
That's right. Well, my shed, it seems a little pale in comparison, Johnny. I've just got Austin Siebert.
Oh, yeah.
He missed not one but 2 extra points in the game when Washington was playing Dallas, and Dallas now has won 2 games in a row. But the second one was so improbable. I mean, Washington was a 10-point favorite at home. They get this incredible pass to Terry McLaurin. He goes to the house for 86 yards or whatever,
Lovely play.
84 yards. And then you're like so excited. I was here with Ridgeway watching, jumping up and down, watching the game. And then he just totally shanks the extra point again. And it was just ridiculous. I know it was a bad snap, but the kid got it down and he just hooked it so badly. And he had that look on his face I was like, listen, Siebert, get in the shed. I don't know if there's a kicking net back there, but you could try to kick in the back of the shed. Maybe you can straighten yourself out.
We're rooting for you there, Austin Siebert. You got a long future in the NFL. Just get straight.
And then for me, we always put teams in the shed, Johnny. Alabama. This week is Alabama. The Tide, they had a chance to make the playoff. Maybe they still do because everybody loves Alabama. But under a new regime here, the Tide crapped the bed. They went to Norman. Oklahoma's been bad all season. They've been getting housed in the SEC. I think they have 1 win in the SEC before this game. They look primed for the playoff, and all of a sudden, 24-3. They just got crushed. And this is kind of the second time we've seen Kellen DeBoer's team not play well in the SEC. So I don't think they deserve to be in the playoff. You'll see what happens this weekend. We won't talk about Georgia yet, but Georgia missed one today. But anyway, Alabama, Kellen DeBoer, you've been in the shed before. You got one more shot to finish out your season.
Jimmy Wags, if anyone has a chance, look up Paul Feinbaum. Paul Feinbaum. There was a Auburn fan who called into his show and his 3 minutes of pure gold. How he just broke down about Alabama's his feelings towards the new head coach, and it's good listening. So you have a chance, find 3 minutes. Paul Feinbaum.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you've gotten 15 years with Saban. You won all these titles. I mean, it's always tough to follow a legend. So, but still. So in Club Dub now, when we go to the positive side, I'm going to start. No pressure, Johnny, but I'm going to say first Saquon Barkley had an amazing week last week. 255 yards rushing in this game. He dominated in this game. He's in rarefied air because through 11 games, he has the most scrimmage yards amongst the all-time greats. He's in the likes of Eric Dickerson and things like that. So he's my MVP. It's very hard for a RB running back to get an MVP. He has to be perfect, which is kind of bullshit. I played running back in high school and stuff. So for me, Saquon's the MVP, even though we know it's going to be Josh Allen or some other Lamar Jackson or something. But Saquon, club dub. You're a humble guy. You love your teammates. Go in there, have some fun. Not too much fun, because I want you to win the award.
That's a good one. So if I had to choose, I will go. You mentioned that you played running back in high school, and Jim and I were high school teammates. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go with the York Dukes, who have found themselves in the state finals for the first time for the football squad. So
incredible.
Good luck to the York Dukes this weekend.
We have our former teammate's son on the quarterback, right?
Yeah, Bruno Massel. He's a stud. Probably saw him on some CBS Prime clips, and yeah, they're a fun team to watch. They're going up against a real good quality caliber foe with Loyola Academy, and good luck to the Dukes.
Yeah, go Dukes. I can't believe they're in the championship. I will put a team in as well. It's the Florida Gators in this case from the SEC. I'm not sure what changed, because they had a really rough start to the season. They didn't win a lot of games, but the last 2 weeks they have gotten it done. They spoiled it against LSU and now Ole Miss last week to kind of ruin those playoff hopes. It's a little late for them to kind of salvage their season for a playoff, but it kind of shows that they actually were able to turn it around, maybe as a quarterback change or some attitude change. So Florida Gators getting club dub. The York Dukes can't really drink in there. Maybe you can show them around, and maybe they can have some goof around, but they can't have any booze, okay? Especially before the big game.
No, they got to be ready. Got to be prepared. If I had to throw someone else in club dub, I will say all 8 teams that participated in the Maui Invitational. Some of these kids, they respond to pressure, hitting 3 after 3 big time moments, and give a little shout out to the Auburn Tigers, who beat the Memphis Tigers for the final. And man, there were some awesome games, but it was the Auburn Tigers who came aboard on top.
Nice. I like it. More teams. So. Okay, so we'll transition to college now, Johnny. I know this is new for you, but we're going to recap last week's games and go into this week's games. We won't have any big picks. We'll just kind of talk about them generally. Let's start with Ohio State. We kind of had some hopes for Indiana here. Thought that they've had a great season, incredible season, but they went to Columbus and kind of got pimp slapped a little bit. And I thought it was more. I don't know if you got to see the game at all. In this particular game, they were like 10-point dogs. I thought they could get to that number really going in, but they had 2 big mistakes in special teams. One was a dropped snap for the punter, and eventually that got blocked, and then there was a punt return for a touchdown that really created the distance in this game. So Ohio State covered easily in this one. Sorry for the Hoosier fans, including our guy Steve Action Roberts, but Ohio State cruised in that one.
Yeah, it's when you go up a weight class, as the Hoosiers did with the Buckeyes, is that you got to play perfect ball, and just some of those bigger blue chip programs, they are just stacked, and you got to have everything going your way. And if you don't play the perfect game, you're going to come out on the short end, and that's what happened with Indiana last week.
It's true. Now, on the other side, we had the CU Buffs that were rolling. Obviously, Deion Sanders, and they've got Travis Hunter is a great player, Shedeur Sanders. But this Jayhawks team, playing at home, they've actually had a really rough start to the season. Last couple of weeks turned it around, and they kind of crushed the Buffs in this one, 38-20. So not only covered the short number there, but they win outright. So it's a little late again for Kansas, much like the Gator season. But they proved spoiler, and I don't know if the Buffs can still make it into the Big 12 title game.
Hard to tell, but I think Deion's a good coach, and he's very inspirational. You will not. I think that the Buffs will come back in a good, hard way.
Yeah, that's true. We talked about last week the service academies. It's tough. Talking about weight class, Army is undefeated going into the Notre Dame game, playing at Notre Dame. They're just, I talked about this. Sometimes the service academies, they're just undersized. These guys are in great shape, of course, but they have to not be gigantic humans. And Army just got big boyed by Notre Dame. The game was never close. It was over in the second quarter. Final score 42-10. So Notre Dame is primed for the playoff, even though their schedule's not so great. don't know if you got to see any of this game.
I missed it all.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. You didn't miss much. Wasn't close. You talked about Auburn making a statement there about Alabama, but Auburn this was a pick that Coop had last week. They got to overtime to win, but they did beat A&M outright 43-41. A&M is one of those teams that's been good all year, but they've had some stumbles lately. Auburn stepped up, and maybe the odds makers knew something here because the number was a lot shorter than it probably should have been, and Auburn won the game 43-41.
Yeah, two good programs, and could have gone either way. It just went to the Auburn Tigers this week.
That's right. We already mentioned the Oklahoma big win, 24-3. By the way, in that game, that was the least amount of points Alabama scored since 2004. So in 20 years, 3 points. That's the worst they've ever done. And then I mentioned Florida already beating Ole Miss. So let's go into this week, Johnny. Obviously, it's kind of a unique week. It's like rivalry week. There's a lot of big games, and that's kind of why I highlighted these games in here. The first game I'm going to highlight is South Carolina, who's ranked 18th against 17th Clemson. You've got an SEC team against an ACC team, but they're both in South Carolina. Clemson is a 2.5-point favorite in this one, 49-point total. It is tomorrow, the 30th at 11 a.m. Central. Any thoughts on this game?
It's pretty much a pick 'em on this one. I'm going to go at home with Clemson.
Okay.
I just feel like Dabo Swinney, he has been there before. South Carolina, new to the top 25, so we're going to go with Clemson.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say with this one. I'll go with the dog. Clemson's been, I know on Dalton's list that they're going to be really good. Clemson has to win this game to get in the ACC championship game. And I think that they might. You've got Miami going to Syracuse, and you've got SMU who's already basically qualified. So if you know, it's kind of an interesting situation. But I don't know, 2.5 points, probably too short. Like you said, Clemson's probably the pick. But I like the way South Carolina's playing at this point. So we'll see. How about Michigan and Ohio State? Michigan's unranked. Ohio State's the second-ranked team, obviously primed to get into the Big Ten championship. But they can be upset here. They're a robust 21-point favorite at home, 43.5-point total. This is also at 11 a.m. Central. Look, Ohio State hasn't beaten Michigan in like 4 years, but I think this is probably it. 21 seems like a lot of points, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a bloodletting because they haven't played well in a long time in this game. So I'd probably lay the points, but that's a lot of points.
Oh, I think Ohio State's going to go in there, and they're going to be hungry, and they're going to be very, very angry.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it's 35 points they win by because they're not going to let their foot off the gas when they're up big. Yeah. Typically, when you have Ohio State and Michigan, it's going to be a good close game. But I feel like Ohio State, they recognize this is the moment, and they still feel like the number one seed could be theirs. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be high flying and hard pushing all over the Wolverine.
Yeah, they are the betting favorite to win the national title at this point, so this is a big game for them. And then we mentioned Auburn and Alabama. Auburn isn't ranked again because they're actually kind of middling in the SEC at number 7 Alabama. Alabama's 11.5-point favorite, 52-point total. I got to check that. It's at 2:30 p.m. Central. That seems like that line might have moved, but let me just check that, Johnny, because that seems a little bit high for me when I look at this stuff. Let's take a look. Yes, it's live. Here we go. It's 10.5 now. Not that different. Look, Alabama's got to win this to have any shot at the playoff, in my view. Auburn, of course, is the big rival and came off a big win. Unfortunately, I like Alabama in this game, mainly because of letdown from Auburn, because they had the big win last week. So these are a letdown spot. These guys are kids. 11.5 seems like a lot, or 10.5 now is the actual total. So I'll pick them to win, but not cover the number. What do you think?
I would agree with you. I think Alabama's going to go in there rather angry. They got a lot of talent, and whether they get to 10.5, that's hard with the Iron Bowl, but go with your heart on this one.
Okay. And then the last game I want to highlight is Texas, who's third ranked at 15th ranked Texas A&M. Texas is a 6-point favorite on the road, 48.5-point total, 6:30 p.m. Central Time in this game. Look, Texas hasn't played anybody this year. The one game they stepped up in class in Georgia, they got beat pretty soundly. A&M has fought the wars in this one. I like A&M in this game. I'm not sure why Texas is favored by 6. Texas, I think is going to be in the playoff whether they win or lose. A&M has probably been circling this game for 2 years or a year or so when they got in this conference. So I like A&M to win this game outright. It's kind of a gut pick, but I do like them.
The funny thing about A&M is that they're an interesting team. A little inconsistent.
Yep.
They can have a bad week like they did last week, or they can stun the world and beat Texas. This week, I don't have a lot of faith in A&M.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Texas, and I am going to go with the over.
Okay, go with the over. Would you lay the wood on the 6?
I bet this will be a close game where Texas ekes it out. I bet they win by 3.
Okay. So it's A&M with the points, but you still like Texas to win the game. So, all right, let's go over the NFL, Johnny. More where your comfort zone, I'm sure. So let's go over Week 12. We've already started Week 13. We'll go over those games in a minute. Week 12, it was 7-6 to the favorites won 7 out of and dogs 6, but the overs crushed it. 11-2 last week is kind of weird. That's an atypical result. Overs are kind of winning on the season. If we review some of the picks we made, actually I picked the Colts, but they ended up getting trounced at home by Detroit 21-6. What can be said? That team's really inconsistent. It's hard to trust Anthony Richardson. They just couldn't get anything going in this game. I don't know if you saw any of it.
I did not see any of that game, but we could probably talk more about it later on. But I think the Colts are done for the year.
Yeah, they're not so good. Now the Bucs, they did win and cover. They took on the hapless Giants. They won 30-7. They got Mike Evans back, which I know you appreciate in your fantasy team. They look like a team. Look, they're in a situation where they lost 2 games to Atlanta, so it's very hard for them to win the division. But if they can go 6-1 down the stretch, then they can actually make the playoffs, and this was one of them. I really like the Bucs as they close the season.
I like the Bucs too. They've got that offense. They got Baker Mayfield, who's just a leader of men, and they got a lot of talent on that team.
Right.
Obviously, the defense not as good, and they'll have a more tougher games going down the stretch than the Giants.
That's true.
Who no longer have Daniel Jones.
That's right. That's after this game. Daniel Jones didn't play in this game, so this was they released him last week. We talked about it last week.
Tommy DeVito game. That's right. So the next game was the Bears. I did like the Bears quite a bit in this game with plus the 3.5 because they always beat Minnesota. They did not win the game, but they did force the overtime and in big comeback. They had to score like 11 points in like 3 minutes or something, and they forced overtime, but they ended up losing in overtime 30-27. But they cover the numbers. So we'll talk about the Bears in a minute when we get to Detroit. But at least last week they covered for me. Yeah, they showed some life, but then also Minnesota, which is encouraging. They had an opportunity to lose, but they stopped the bleeding and they held off the Bears and won the game. And
they did.
That shows to me that they've got some mettle, they got some intestinal fortitude or toughness.
That's right. The ginger, Sam Darnold came through.
What a resurgence he's having!
Amazing. We talked about the Commanders losing the game. They actually lost the game outright in this one, 34-26. Very unique game, back and forth, super exciting. They were 10-point favorites at home. They had the miraculous touchdown to McLaurin. They actually had a chance again for a Hail Mary because inexplicably the Dallas guy returned the onside kick to the house, which gave them another chance to tie the game, but neither here nor there. Washington loses outright in that one, so... Arizona, this was one that was, I know that Action liked Seattle, Dalton liked Arizona. We stayed away from it in the contest. But yeah, this was a weird game. Seattle and Arizona was like kind of a boring game. A lot of punts, a lot of tough defense. But the pick 6 in this one, Kyler's had a great year, but he had a really bad throw in this one. We just kind of lobbed it up to somebody and he took it to the house. That was the difference in the game. They lose 16-6, but it was really that one touchdown that made the difference, and Seattle wins and actually technically takes the lead in the NFC West.
The NFC West, it's there for the taking, and
it is.
Some teams will look good, and sometimes they won't. For example, Seattle, they started off strong and then lost several games in a row, and now they've won 2 in a row, and they're on top of the leaderboard. So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
It'll be interesting.
The two primetime games were interesting. We talked about Saquon Barkley. The Eagles were dominant in this game against the Rams. They kind of beat them up front in the second half. Saquon had not one but two 70-yard touchdown runs, and that set up the 34-20 win over the Rams. The odds-on favorite to lead the league in rushing now and Offensive Player of the Year. But as I mentioned, I really want him to win the MVP. But he broke the franchise record with that 255 yards rushing.
He is a stud. It just shows a lot of times it's the environment that you're in. Is while he was pretty good for the Giants, but you put him in a better system with the Eagles, and he is all world.
Yeah, running quarterback that always opens it up to the running back, and he's taking advantage. Speaking of running quarterbacks, the Ravens on Monday night, they spotted the Chargers 10 points in the first quarter. When I first looked at it, I was a little worried, but no worries. The Ravens offense just kind of dominated them. From that point on, they rushed for over 200 yards in this game. They win the game 30-23, and that score wasn't really indicative of it because the Chargers scored late. They were up by 2 touchdowns in that game. So Ravens win that one and cover. They look really good. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but those two teams, Eagles, Ravens, play this week. But I kind of feel like it's Super Bowl preview, which we can talk about in a minute.
Yeah, it definitely could be. What I liked about the Ravens is that you had the Chargers coming in with one of the better running offenses in the league, and the Ravens just shut them down, and that was even without Roquan Smith. So the Ravens should just get better, pending no injuries.
Nice. Look, we got a like in the chat. I'm not sure who that was, but thank you. You can feel free to say hi because we were running a little late for Chicago time. Well, let's go into this week's games. We've already had 4, actually, because obviously we're taping this on Friday the 29th. After the Friday night game, you had 3 games on Thanksgiving, and we love Thanksgiving football. There are no buys this week, Johnny. Lament all the fantasy football people for next week. But we talked about the Bears briefly. We'll go over this game a little bit. They were 9.5-point favorites in the contest. They closed as a 10.5-point favorite. They were getting crushed in the first half. It was 16-0. They probably should have been down 31-0. At one stage, it was like 250 yards to like 15 or something for the Bears. They had no first downs until their final drive. And then in the second half, like they've done all year, they've played a little bit better. Maybe Detroit was thinking about Thanksgiving dinner. They actually got to the point where they could tie or win the game on the final drive. And in the end, they just, what can we say? They dicked it over. They had a chance. They were inside the 25-yard line with 45, 50 seconds left, and then all of a sudden you get a sack, or a penalty, then a sack. And with 36 seconds, they had plenty of time with the timeout, and they decided to not call the timeout. Caleb changed the game, play at the line and throws a weak pass, and the game is over. We were watching the game. I was stunned. Yeah. And thankfully, they did fire Eberflus this morning. So they made the right decision. They should have fired him a few weeks ago. But what the hell were you thinking in that moment?
Well, it's typical Bears fan where you give up and then they bring you back in.
They did.
And then you think that there is a possibility that they could pull it off, and you can't believe it. And you get excited, and then they totally bears it up and they lose.
Yeah.
So just like the Washington game and the
Green Bay
game, the Minnesota game, and now Detroit, they always find new ways to lose. And one of the things I've been thinking about, Jimmy Wags, is just how do you have what is a good successful coach?
Right.
And obviously the players came back, but the players want to be coached.
Yeah.
And I remember just watching Hard Knocks.
Sure.
And Matt Eberflus was trying to be buddy with everyone.
He was
coming up with all these nicknames, and even the Bears player about Shane Waldron is like, "Hey, coach us up." Yep. And I think how Matt Eberflus failed is that he just did not hold his players to high standards. You saw that with Tyreek Stevenson.
Sure.
There was a couple other incidents with players where they did not give the effort that they should have, and they were not held accountable because while Matt has had a lot of success in college and NFL coordination, is that he just wasn't the head coach. So I just feel like whatever they do going forward, or any NFL team going forward, you have to have someone who sets standards and holds one another to standards. And then that's really the key to victory for a lot of these NFL franchises.
Well, there's a difference between coordinating, which is basically calling plays and schemes, and working on a tactic, and then there's coaching men. These are grown ass men, and you look at the Mike Tomlins of the world, which I've been critical of him in the past because I think he's been soft on certain guys, but in the end, he's been doing it for a long time for a reason. People respect him. Harbaugh comes in the league. He was gone. He was obviously great with his 49ers, goes to Michigan, steps in this year, total culture change, right? Mm-hmm. And it's about accountability, like you said, Absolutely. But he's also coaching you. He's maybe not old school to the point where he's making guys run wind sprints like we used to do, but like he's making them better by being tough on them. Being your buddy is not the way it works. And, you look at the best coaches in the league, the Harbaughs, maybe Andy Reid's kind of joking around once in a while, but there's a system involved. And I think they just don't have a system or a culture. And that's what I've noticed with the Bears. So pour one out for Eberflus. We're drinking a little Bellini Bliss here for him. But we were happy to hear this morning. It was the first time the Bears have fired a coach in season in the history of the franchise, which is awesome because I thought he should have been fired after the Patriots game. So,
and there's a lot of folks that said he should have been fired last year, but
that's right.
Give him a chance. And that's maybe where Ryan Poles was just a little too nice to him.
He was. That one thing was step back.
Yeah.
The Bears were Bears fans. What about Detroit? Detroit has been a juggernaut. They played great in the first half. Looked like they had the whole game in control. Do you think that was just a blip? That they just kind of let up a little bit and let it in? Because they've been rolling teams. They've been covering every number no matter what it is. Do you think that they're still the team to beat in the NFC?
Ooh, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. It's definitely as it looks now, between the Lions and the Eagles. They're on a collision course to the NFC Championship. That offense looks phenomenal. They've got a good dynamic duo with Montgomery and Gibbs. And then they've got some really good receivers with St. Brown and Jameson Williams and Laporta.
Yeah,
I mean, that guy, he's always open. Yep. The big thing is the defense, and they've had a lot of injuries. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what ended up happening is that you had some
a lot of guys got hurt.
Younger guys come in who don't know the system, and you just threw them in there, and the Bears exploited it. Mm-hmm. If the Lions can get healthy and some of these younger guys get some reps, I do feel like it is the Lions' year this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the big advantage with the Lions is they're playing at home, likely. They're a game ahead of Philly right now. They've played every game indoors, which is crazy. We cataloged it yesterday. They had 3 games outdoors all year. Coop talked about it in the preview for the season. So it's their season to lose anyway, at least in the NFC. Mm-hmm. If they go to Philly in the winter, in January, I don't know, be a tougher story. So they have to stay strong down the stretch and keep the record. So that's a big factor. So, well, let's move to the other games. We had the Giants go to Dallas. They started Drew Lock there. I was hopeful that they'd cover the 3.5 point spread, but they did not. But they didn't score enough points. This game went over the 37.5 point total. The pick 6 was pretty big in that game as well, and Dallas was able to win 2 in a row. Does Dallas have any shot? They have 7 losses, so they're 5-7. Do you have any shot, do you think, for the playoffs?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, me too. They stick.
But it's good that there's some people who want to talk them up because they get a lot of clicks, and obviously they're America's team, but no, they're dead.
In the nightcap, you had Miami at Green Bay. Green Bay was a 3-point favorite at home, 47.5 point total. Really, Green Bay dominated the first half. It wasn't really close. Miami had a chance in the second half. The record is well known that under 40 degrees, the Finns under 2 are not very good. So I was feeling pretty good about this pick. We picked in the contest. But they cut it. They had a chance to really cut it again, and then they got stopped inside the 15, and the game was effectively over. So Miami's at 5-7. They're really going to need some help to make in the playoffs. Any shot for them?
It's possible. I don't know how many more games at home or how many.
They have 2 games at home, I think, and what are they? They're 12. That's 5 games. They 2 games on the road, 3 games on the road, 2 games at home. They get to play the Jets twice. They have to play like San Francisco, who's hurting, and I think the Chargers. Is that right? Maybe they already played Chargers. They played one other good team. So the road's not great. They're basically going to have to almost go undefeated. I mean, they might 9-8 is going to be tough to make it.
Yeah, I don't see it because there's some other quality squads in the AFC, and I mean they can really have a nice finish to set up next year, but highly unlikely.
Yep. Speaking of guys that probably should get fired, Antonio Pierce for the Raiders. They played the Chiefs today. Now, look, give the Raiders credit. They always play the Chiefs close. They've been covering numbers. They beat the Chiefs last year on Thanksgiving. They had a chance to beat them today, trailing 19-17. Final seconds there. Botch snap fumble inside the 35. That ended their plight, but they did cover the 12.5, which actually in our contest we took them, so that's a loss for us, Steve and I. But this Chiefs team keeps winning these crazy games where they should be losing. I mean, do you think they're just going to flip the switch in the playoffs, kind of like they did last year, or is it just indicative that this team is going to probably botch one?
They've had a lot of good luck, right? And not all that luck can continue. But the other thing with the Chiefs is that they're still integrating some new players into the offense.
True.
And so with Patrick Mahomes, you can never count them out. Mm-hmm. And eventually their offense is going to tighten up. And their defense has been really solid. That's been holding them together. So even though that they're winning these close games, is that if they do need to improve, especially on the offense, and that's really just getting some of these new guys more accommodated into the system.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Chiefs, the problem is with the Chiefs they've got the best player in the game, right? Mahomes. Mm-hmm. So with that defense playing elite for the most part, they played bad last week, but they came back to form. It's going to be tough. I just think it's going to come down to can Lamar, Jackson go to KC and win? Can Josh Allen go to KC and win? And I don't know. I think in the NFC, I think somebody can beat them. I think in the AFC, we'll just see what happens, but we'll see. All right, so we got games on Sunday now, Johnny. Let's go into the noon slate for Central Time. We'll start off with Seattle at the Jets. We talked about Seattle. They kind of control their destiny now. They're tied for first, but they actually have the tiebreak beating Arizona. They're going to a Jets squad, which, our favorite player, Aaron Rodgers, is there. Seattle's actually favored on the road in this one, minus 1.5 points here, 42-point total. It's a spot I don't want to take. I don't like the Jets at all, but I don't like Seattle going all the way across the country and being a favorite, even though the Jets have had a terrible season. So it's a perfect spot for the Jets to surprise somebody if you're going to pick them in a contest like mine with Donnan and stuff. But it's a stay-away game for me. I don't really love Seattle in this spot. Not sure what you're thinking.
I'm thinking you take the Jets and you take the under.
Okay, because their defense will finally come to play, huh?
And they still have a skeleton of a good offense.
Uh-huh.
And whether it's Breece Hall or Braylon Allen, and they still have Devontae Adams. So the Seahawks, they've been playing okay, but for them to be playing at 10 o'clock, actually 9 o'clock their time.
It's true.
Across the nation, I just don't see it. I see where Rodgers puts up a final fight and they win the game, but not by a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the Jets, they just got to cover that number. It's a short number. So, okay, let's talk about another West Coast team going to East. You've got the Chargers going to Atlanta. Similar situation, I suppose. 1.5 point favorites on the road, 47.5 point total. The market seems to think kind of against the Chargers here. They've shortened it to a 1 point favorite in the market. So the 1.5 is for the contest, the circuit contest. Originally, I really liked the Chargers in this game. I think they're the better football team. I think in years past, you go against the Chargers in this spot because they have crappy coaching, but they don't this time. Atlanta's a little bit of a fraud team for me, but they are coming off a bye. So I can see why, at least Action I backed off the Chargers pick. It was an emotional loss and all that stuff. I still probably would lay it with the Chargers if I had to, gun to my head, but this is another spot I'm not super thrilled about. The 47.5, I like the over in this game for sure.
Well, the Chargers are coming off a Monday night loss.
Mm-hmm.
Short week. They have been playing overall better than expected in Atlanta. Going to Atlanta, who's playing pretty well as well. I got to go with the Falcons on this one. Once again, it's your short week, 3-hour time zone difference.
Sure.
And Atlanta having a pretty good offense, decent defense. They should be able to get one at home.
It's kind of a must-win. I mean, Atlanta, it's an AFC game, but Atlanta's got Tampa kind of breathing down their neck, so I get it. I just don't believe in their defense, but I hear you. What about Pittsburgh at Cincinnati? Cincinnati is a 3-point favorite at home here, 47.5-point total. When I look at my metrics, Pittsburgh's a much better football team. You know, they've been really good this year, but this is a must-win for Cincinnati. They have to win this football game or they're done. They're just absolutely done. So I understand why they are 3-point favorites. You know, I kind of like the 2.5 early in the week, Johnny. So 3 is not a great number I would love, but I do think Cincinnati's going to win the football game. So I guess I'd lay the 3.
I agree with you. It's a must-win for Cincinnati. Pittsburgh, while playing well, they're not an 8-3 team. They're definitely not a 9-3 team. So,
right.
And I don't think the Bengals are as bad as the record says. So, all things being equal, Cincinnati. Now, the one thing I don't know about is the over.
Yeah, it looks pretty big.
I think, I would go under on that one. I wouldn't parlay it, but I do think that 47.5 points is a little high for this divisional game myself.
Yeah, it's one of those black and blue divisions. I mean, Cincinnati's defense has been bad, but Pittsburgh has been able to muck it up pretty bad, even against like the Ravens, where there's really scored. So I get it. Good call. Okay, so now we got Houston at the Jags. The Jags have had an atrocious season. Doug Peterson I can't believe he's not fired. He's just going to be fired at the end of the season. But in the contest, Houston was a 4.5-point favorite on the road, 44-point total. But in the market, it's dropped all the way to 3.5. So a lot of money's coming in on the Jags. And I think the thought here on this move is, well, the Jags have nothing to lose, right? They're not going to make the playoffs. Maybe they haven't given up. Maybe they have. I don't know. But Houston's also been not great. But traditionally, Houston wins this matchup. If even 3.5 is not a great number for a divisional game, so I understand why the money's coming in on Houston. So I love the 4.5 in the contest. I just can't put my heart in money on the Jags this year. They have broken my heart many times, both on my fantasy squad and in these picks. So what do you think?
Divisional games always scare me. Like if you just look at the Commanders and the Cowboys, you felt very confident that the Commanders were going to win. And they lost.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Bears and the Lions. You felt very confident that the Lions were going to crush the Bears, and the Bears came back. Same thing with the Houston Texans and Jacksonville Jaguars. There's always that variability, that uncertainty that takes a sure thing and sways it to the underdog. In this case, I think this is a prime opportunity for Jacksonville to upset the Texans, and so definitely go ahead and take the 4.5 points and take the Jags going forward.
Yeah, I gotcha. Maybe pad the season win total, right? What about Arizona at Minnesota? This is 2 playoff caliber teams right now. Arizona's on the fringe at 6-5, outside the division lead now. But Minnesota, as you mentioned, they've been winning a lot of games. The 3.5-point favorites at home, 45-point total. This is Minnesota's first game at home in a month because they had 3 straight road games, including the Bears game. So I actually like Arizona here, plus 3.5. I think that there's something to Minnesota coming home, maybe, relaxing a little bit, having the turkey and stuff, and you've got Kyler Murray coming to town, and they're in a must-win situation. So I like the plus 3.5 Arizona.
Yeah, the big thing is how will Kyler Murray respond to the blitz?
Yeah, blitz a lot.
If he's able to kind of beat the blitz, whether it be with his legs or with his arms, then Arizona can pull this one out. I feel like Minnesota got a little bit lucky against the Bears.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a little overconfidence. So I could definitely see where Arizona wins this one. What I feel is probably the better bet is taking the over on 45.
45, okay.
Yeah. So take the over and take Arizona.
All right, there you go. Indy's going to New England. Indy's a 2.5-point favorite on the road, 42.5-point total. You talked about Indy being done. New England has been done. I mean, Drake May has been okay. New England got housed in Miami last week. Usually when teams get destroyed the week before, they bounce back. So I really can't back Indy in this game. I don't love them. They've been a team, Johnny, you don't follow us as close as we do. They were 7-1 against the spread to start the season, and now they just kind of every other week they're up and down. This would be the week that they're up. Maybe they should win this game, but I can't do it. I can't lay any points with Indy on the road. So it's New England or pass. It's not one of my top 5 picks, but I can't back Indy here.
Yeah, I'm going to guess there's going to be some bad weather in New England this
that's
weekend.
true.
And I just have no faith in Anthony Richardson. Heck of a talent. He hasn't quite learned the quarterback position quite yet in the NFL.
It's true.
So if you ask him to throw with accuracy in bad weather,
No thanks.
no, I don't see it. And the other thing with New England is that they're playing better than expectations. So I feel like their arrow is trending up while Indianapolis is trending down. So I will take the Patriots.
There we go. Like it. Tennessee at Washington. Washington's a 6-point favorite at home, 44.5-point total. The Fighting Will Levises, he's the reason why they've lost a lot of these games, but they did win last week against Houston in Houston, and I like their defense. I think Washington all season's been one of my darlings. I'm going to give you a little information. I don't remember the exact stat here. Cliff Kingsbury, I know he's the offensive coordinator, not the head coach, but as an offensive coordinator or coach, he's incredible early in the season. And then after week 6 or 7, the team just tanks where I guess the other team figures them out. Tennessee's a good defense. I kind of feel they're going to do this. 6 points is way too many points here, Johnny. 44.5-point total. Probably an under game. I don't know. Tennessee could put some points up here. But Washington was rolling teams like this early in the season. They will not do it here. They may win, but they're not going to cover the 6 points. So I like Tennessee in this game.
6 points is a lot of points for the Commander. But we've been agreeing too much. That's not fun. So I am going to take the Commanders, mostly because I got Jaden Daniels on the fantasy squad, and I am going with my rooting interest. But that's just me. If I was someone else, I would probably agree with Jimmy Wiggs on this one.
So let's go to the 3 o'clock window. You've got Tampa at Carolina. Tampa is a 5.5-point favorite on the road, 46.5-point total. This is at 3:05 Central Time in Carolina. Bryce Young, we didn't talk about this. Bryce Young played very well against those Kansas City Chiefs in the defense, and they not just cover the game, they almost won it. Now they get Tampa, who's been, they got to win, and they've been putting up some points. I kind of feel like Tampa's the team here. I mean, no 5.5 divisional game. I don't love that number, but Tampa's on a mission. Baker's on a mission, so I would lay the 5.5.
Yeah, Bryce Young, he was the number 1 pick overall for a good reason. Bad situation last year, and he's improving, like you said. Tampa Bay's defense, okay to mediocre. So Carolina, definitely with Chuba Hubbard, has an opportunity to put up some points. I think this is going to be a closer game than one would expect. So I do think Tampa's going to win, but I don't think they'll cover.
Okay, I like it. A couple more games in the 3 o'clock window. You've got the Rams going to the Saints. The Rams are 2.5-point favorites here, 49.5-point total. Now the Rams obviously got beat last week. They've kind of been up and down, win or lose. They're kind of in that quagmire NFC West. The Saints effectively are out. They fired their coach, but they've been playing better since the we call dead cat bounce. My numbers tell me the Saints are actually a better team, which is kind of weird to say. I don't like the Rams here, but I'm definitely going to stay away from this game. The Rams got to win it to stay active, so I get it, but I don't like that they're favored by that much on the road.
Yeah, it's only 2.5 points. When I look at Stafford, McVay, and that offense, and I look at New Orleans, I'll have to go with the Rams. They still have something to play for, and I think the Saints and the crowd won't be as energetic as they would need to be able to pull off this upset.
I gotcha. Let's talk about probably the best game of the weekend. It's Philadelphia at Baltimore. Baltimore's a 3-point favorite at home, 51-point total. Like I said, kind of a Super Bowl preview here potentially. Eagles have won 7 games in a row. Baltimore's bouncing back after last week beating the Chargers. I should probably let you talk first this time, but I'm laying the wood with Baltimore, and I'm doing it for a couple reasons. Baltimore, specifically Lamar Jackson, when he plays NFC teams, he just crushes them. He wins them every time, and I don't know why. Maybe because they don't see him enough. So that's a big factor. 3 points is pretty short. Baltimore is very good in this scenario. If you look at trends, 3 points or less favored. They're really good. So I am going to lay the wood here. I don't love a lot of favorites this week, but I do like this one. 51-point total, probably under, even though that's a really, these teams can both score. If the Eagles do win this one, then I already told you when I go back, I'm probably going to bet on the Eagles Super Bowl when I go home. But if they win this game, especially control Baltimore, because they have a really good defensive line they're not a good pass defense, rush defense. They control Saquon, or they kind of bust through that. I'll get on the Philly bandwagon.
I think at this one, this is a big time game, and this is where you look towards the coaching staffs.
Yep.
And I look at John Harbaugh versus Nick Sirianni, and they're both winners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl winners, but I do have more faith in John Harbaugh to get his team prepared for this big game. So I will also pick Baltimore, and I believe Roquan's coming back, which will be a big help to their run defense. And I think if you stop Saquon, you definitely impair the Eagles' offense. So I'm going with you with the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, he ran for 255 last week. He's not going to run for 255 again. They're going to shut him down. So it's all about Jalen Hurts. And A.J. Brown's really good, though. So we'll see. But I hear you. I like it. In the Sunday night game, you've got San Francisco at Buffalo. This seemed like a better game, like preseason, right? San Francisco's kind of fallen off the face of the earth here. Buffalo's a 7-point favorite in the contest, 44.5-point total. In the market, it's down to 6. So there is some buyback on San Francisco. It's indicative that maybe Purdy's going to play this game, even with that shoulder that he hurt last week. I don't know if it matters. 6 points is a lot, but San Francisco's defense isn't that good. And I think Buffalo, who was in on the bye last week, if I recall correctly, I'd lay the wood. I mean, I couldn't talk action taking the 7 there, which is understandable. But at 6, come on, dude. I'm all in for the Bills.
They're having some heavy weather in Buffalo this week.
There you go.
And if Purdy's got a bad shoulder, if he can't throw the ball like he has, if he doesn't have that zip, then you're looking at interception galore for the Buffalo Bill.
Yep.
Also, Christian McCaffrey's come back. He isn't his old self, still coming back from that Achilles injury, which is a big time injury for him, just the way that he plays. And San Francisco has had some pretty debilitating injuries on that defense.
Yep.
So I do see where Buffalo. I would take the 6 with Buffalo. I don't know about the over with the weather, but
yeah, right.
I just don't see how San Francisco goes into a snowy Buffalo and comes out with a victory.
Yeah, agreed. On Monday night, you got Cleveland at Denver. Denver's a 5.5-point favorite, 41.5-point total at 7:30 or 7:15 p.m. Central. Look, Denver's been good. They keep winning. They're playing good football. They probably shouldn't have covered last week against the Raiders, but did. Cleveland, they got nothing to lose. I don't love them. I think they're playing better with Winston. So, on paper, Denver's a better football team. There's no question. It's Monday Night Football. I don't know. I wouldn't take the 5.5. I just think it's too many. So it's Cleveland or pass. It's not one of my top picks at all.
Cleveland still has a really good defense. Mm-hmm. And they're going against a rookie quarterback on Monday Night Football. I think that's the difference. I would take Cleveland with this game, and I would take the under. I think just those two offenses aren't as high-powered as other ones.
Right.
So definitely I would go with the under and take Cleveland in the points.
Nice. I'll review my picks, Johnny. We already got Green Bay in the books, so that's nice. That's a win. I like Tampa minus 5.5. I like Arizona plus the 3.5. Baltimore minus the 3. I did have the Chargers minus 1.5. I know we didn't go with the contest there. We already lost the Chiefs. So not to put you on the spot, but you don't have to go 5. Any picks you like more than others this week?
Your picks?
Or the other ones?
I like Baltimore. I like Baltimore. I like the Rams.
Good.
And then I do feel pretty good about the Patriots.
Okay. Patriots plus 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Just to review the contest, Johnny, we've got over last weekend there were 45 knockouts. It was down to like 99 people, so now it's only 54 people. And the way the contest worked is, I think everybody advanced through this week, as there were no actual upsets. If the Chiefs and the Lions would have lost, we would have lost quite a few people this week from the 54. But now there's actually another quote unquote week going into the weekend. So they survived the next 2 days, but now they have to pick again for Sunday and Monday another team. I expect some knockouts. But yeah, there's 54 people left out of the 14,266 originally. Last week we had a good 3-2 week. We are slowly moving up in the standings. Maybe a little too late. It'd be nice to finish the quarter here with maybe a 4-1. We're 1-1 right now with 3 picks pending. So we'll see what happens. And then we have one more quarter after this week that starts. That's a 5-week quarter, Johnny. If we can somehow get up in that top 5 for the last 5 weeks, we'll win some money back, which would be ideal.
Do the Costanza.
That's right. So
Go against what you believe.
That's right. This weekend, we already went out tonight. Tomorrow we'll do a hike, probably tomorrow. Check out the island. You're talking about Pearl Harbor on Sunday. You guys fly back on Sunday. I'm flying to Philly on Monday, and then I'll be back in Chicago in less than a week, like 10 days now, 8 days. What do you got going when you get back next week?
Oh, I got to travel for work. I'll be in Dallas, and of course, when I'm not working, there'll be Christmas movies ahead.
Ooh, there you go. What's your favorite? What would you say your favorite Christmas movie?
Oh, well, what I'm going to go with is not my favorite, but an underappreciated one.
Ooh, okay. Can't wait.
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way? You mean Arnold Schwarzenegger?
And Jake Lloyd and Sinbad.
Sinbad. That's
yeah.
Right. I remember that
just
movie.
A classic with Turbo Man dolls.
Turbo Man, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the late great Phil Hartman makes an appearance. Yeah.
Okay.
How about you, Jimmy White? What's your favorite or underappreciated Christmas movie for you?
I think current favorite, in the pantheon is Elf. It's a family favorite.
Yeah.
Watch with Sophia, my daughter, all the time. Underrated. I mean, it's not really underrated. I like A Christmas Carol, but I mean, I like you got to pick your one. I kind of like the old school one, Alistair Sim. It's old school. Watched with my pops back in the day, probably from the 50s or something. So probably isn't even shown on TV anymore. But yeah, that's my favorite one.
Yeah, you get that at the Blockbuster.
It's Blockbuster, right? So. All right, well, follow us at Side Action Pod on Twitter. I'm sorry, on X and on Instagram, Side Action Podcast. Follow me at Wegspool on X and on Instagram.
And if you want to follow me, there's no sporting stuff there, but you can find me on X at John R. Ulrich, ULRICH. Or if you want to hang out on Instagram, you'll find me and my dog Indy at John R. Ulrich 43.
And don't forget about our TikTok. I'll figure out the TikTok. Maybe I'll throw up the movie thing. So that was a good one. So thanks, everybody, for the late edition here. Hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Don't forget to, like us, follow us, and all that stuff. Hopefully Coop will be back next week. I'm going to give him the business. I'm going to be at my company party, but we got to work it out. So until next week. And thank you, Johnny. You're the man.
It was good to be here, and hopefully I did not screw up the pod that badly.
You did great. Great.
Well, thanks, Jimmy Weiss.
All right. Take care, everybody.
There you go, Coach.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Side Action Podcast. We appreciate all of your listens, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you all again next week on Thursday for some more hot picks and side action. Side Action Podcast, its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the show hosts or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of this podcast, and opinions between talk show hosts may conflict. Individuals following the advice given on the podcast accept their own risk of losses from wagers made. As the Side Action Podcast, its owners, hosts, associates, or guests will not guarantee any advice given. The opinions and advice given on the Side Action Podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Intro and outro and transition music credits. Song titles Jerry 5 and District 4 by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.org. Licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0. creativecommons.org/licenses/by 3.0.